What if I told you a rookie NFL quarterback got thrown into a tie game against one of the most dangerous defenses in football without ever taking a single practice rep with the first team? No rhythm, no chemistry, not even a snap in walkthroughs. And then, boom, the starter goes down, and all eyes turn to the one guy who's been ignored since day one, Shadur Sanders. Seems brutal, right? But that's just the beginning, because what happened next didn't just stun fans, it left even Rex Ryan, one of Shedur's loudest critics, completely speechless. The same Rex who spent months trashing Sanders on national TV just flipped his entire stance after one game. And not because Shadur played lights out, he didn't. He struggled, the box score was bad, Twitter started roasting him instantly. So why? Why did Rex suddenly rush to his defense? What did he see that nobody else did? And what does it say about the Cleveland Browns organization that the loudest voice in football is now calling them out for setting up their own player to fail? Because if the reports are true, if Shadur was never given the tools to even remotely succeed, then this isn't just a bad coaching decision. This might be one of the most embarrassing quarterback scandals of the year. Let's break it down what really happened, what the footage shows, and why the football world is turning on Cleveland right now. Let's rewind. Because to really understand how badly this situation in Cleveland spiraled out of control, you have to go back to the moment that started it all. NFL Draft Night. The Cleveland Browns weren't just sitting back waiting to see who'd fall into their lap. They made their move loud and clear. They traded up, gave away future picks, and draft capital to go get Shadur Sanders. That's not the kind of move teams make lightly. When you trade up, you're not just rolling the dice. You're telling the world, we believe in this guy. He's part of our future. At the time, the reaction was mixed. Some fans loved it. Others thought it was a reach. But either way, it was clear. Shedeur wasn't just another prospect. He was now an investment. The Browns didn't just grab him in the late rounds and hope he developed behind the scenes. They moved up the board to secure him. That means they saw something. Maybe it was the arm talent, the poise at Colorado, the bloodline, or just the raw leadership potential. But whatever it was, Cleveland made a public bet that this kid could be something special. And here's the crazy part. At first, it actually felt like the right call. Shedeur had just come off a high-profile college season. He'd been battle-tested in high-pressure games every single week. How many quarterbacks walk into their first NFL building already used to national headlines and full stadiums chanting their name and booing it the next week? This wasn't a small-school guy riding hype. This was a prospect who had faced real competition, real coverage, real criticism, and had won over a whole new fan base in Colorado. He had swagger, sure, but also precision. He could throw on the run, read pressure, command the offense. Whether you liked him or not, the tools were real. So, naturally, fans assumed that Cleveland had a plan. Draft the kid, develop him behind a veteran, let him grow into the system, get reps, and be ready when the time came. But that's not what happened. Because what unfolded over the next few months felt less like a development strategy and more like a disappearing act. Shedeur didn't just get limited reps. He got none. He wasn't rotating in on drills with the first team, wasn't taking snaps during key practice sessions, wasn't working on chemistry with the receivers who'd be starting on Sunday. In fact, according to multiple reports, he wasn't even running with the scout team consistently. Let that sink in. The quarterback Cleveland traded up for was effectively a ghost during game prep. Like, they'd forgotten he was on the depth chart entirely. And it gets worse. When reporters asked about his role, team officials dodged. He's learning the system. We're focused on our starter right now. Fair enough, but then why trade up to get him if you were never going to give him a chance? That's the part nobody can figure out. Why invest picks, time, and organizational energy into a guy that you're not even giving baseline reps to? Was there a change in plans behind the scenes? Did someone higher up make the call but lose faith? Or is this just another classic case of dysfunction in a franchise that's been known for it? Because to outsiders, it looked like the Browns were all in, right up until the second they actually got their guy. Then the silence hit. No reps, no development, no support, just a name on the roster, and eventually, a body getting thrown into one of the highest pressure moments of the season with zero preparation. And if that's not bad enough, wait until you see how they actually treated him in-game. Because what happened when Shadur finally stepped on the field didn't just expose their lack of preparation, it exposed a lot more than that. So here you have this electric young quarterback, a guy the Browns actively pursued just vanishing, practically overnight. He arrived in Cleveland with cameras around, buzz on social media, interviews, highlights blasting on Red Zone, recaps from college, and then nothing. Shadur Sanders didn't just fall out of the spotlight, he fell completely off the radar. No updates, no preseason hype, barely any media coverage after training camp. Fans started asking, wait, is Shedeur even on the roster? And somehow, the silence said more than any press conference ever could. Because while other rookies were posting videos working with their new receivers, getting comfort reps in with the first team, or at the very least, running scout team, the reports started leaking that Shedeur wasn't doing any of that. He wasn't taking any snaps in practice with the starters. Walkthroughs? Nope. 7-on-7 seconds with the first team? Also no. Hell, even some backups were getting more look-in than he was. Why? Nobody could say. And the Browns? They weren't offering any real answers either. Here's what makes it worse. This is not a veteran quarterback we're talking about. This isn't some journeyman backup who knows the playbook inside and out and doesn't need the reps. This is a rookie, a draft pick, a guy with raw tools who needs actual coaching to succeed. But apparently, the plan never included giving him that time. According to multiple insiders, Shedeur spent training camp basically sidelined from the quarterback plan altogether. Everything from camp to pre-game warm-ups centered on Gabriel, Flacco, and Kenny Pickett. Sanders was occasionally spotted in practice, jogging routes, or handing off the ball in low-rep drills. Basically, he was a passenger on a train he was once supposed to drive. That's not player development, that's a shelf life. And it wasn't just about reps either. There was no chemistry being built, no timing work with the open receivers, no learning the cadence with the offensive line, and it would come back to haunt them big time when the moment finally came. But let's pause for a second and ask the obvious question. Why draft a quarterback that high just to leave him out of the plan completely? Seriously, what was the point? If the coaching staff didn't believe in him, who did? The front office? The owner? Was this another example of a team where the personnel department and the coaching staff weren't even on the same page? Or was it something else? Was it personal? You can't help but wonder the silence, the lack of preparation, the complete disregard for basic quarterback development. It all felt intentional. Ego, hierarchies, politics in the locker room. It happens a lot more often than people think. Typically, when a rookie doesn't play, it's because he's holding a clipboard, watching, learning the standard development model. But that's not what was happening here. Shedeur wasn't, by all accounts, even being allowed to watch and learn the right way. He was being iced out. No playbook packages tailored to his style. No feedback loops. No unos team cadence familiarity. To put it plainly, Shadur Sanders was in the building but not in the plan. And here's the worst part. Nobody was reacting to it. No outrage from the locker room. No noise from the coaching staff. No pressure from the front office, just dead air. Like they were all quietly waiting for the moment they could write him off without backlash. And if that really is the case, then we have to be honest. This wasn't just a matter of underutilizing a player. This was looking more and more like the Browns had never intended to give Shedeur a real opportunity from the start. Which, of course, brings us to the moment everything boiled over. Because when Dillon Gabriel went down and Cleveland's offense needed anyone to step up in a must-win situation, guess who they turned to? The guy they hadn't spoken to in months. The guy who hadn't worked with the O-line. The guy who didn't know the cadence, the rhythm, or the route timing. They threw Shadur Sanders into the fire. And what happened next? Nobody saw coming. This is where the story stops being frustrating and starts becoming insane. Because all that silence, all that neglect, all the weeks Shadur Sanders spent watching instead of preparing, boiled over in one of the biggest regular season games of the Browns' year. Cleveland versus Baltimore. Division rivalry, playoff stakes, fourth quarter, tied at 16. Dillon Gabriel's running the offense. It's ugly, but they're hanging in. Then boom. Gabriel takes a monster hit. Helmet to turf. Medical staff rushes in. Concussion protocol, he's out. And just like that, the guy who hasn't taken a single live snap with the starting offense all season gets handed the ball. Shadur Sanders. No warning, no rhythm, not chemistry. And somehow, no one in the building stops for a second to say, wait, are we seriously doing this? The Browns didn't put a game plan in place. They didn't even simplify the playbook for him. And as Shedeur jogged onto the field, something felt off. You could see it in the players' body language, receivers looking confused, offensive linemen scrambling back to the huddle like they didn't know what was coming. And worst of all, the energy was gone. The stadium was buzzing, fans were hyped to see what Sanders could do. But on the field, his own teammates were flat, like they knew this wasn't going to work. And they were right. First drive, disaster. Pressure in his face instantly. Shedur's mechanics got sloppy footwork off, timing off. The ball sails high over the middle. Ravens defense reads it like a book. Easy interception. Game changer. Now, imagine being that rookie. You weren't just thrown into the fire, you were handed a blowtorch and blamed for the blaze. Because before Shedeur could even return to the sideline, the narrative was writing itself. Bust. Not NFL ready. He proved all the critics right. On social media, instant roasting. Sports talk shows already queuing up segments for Monday. The scoreboard tilting hard in Baltimore's favor. But wait, we're not done. Second drive, Cleveland still has a chance, down 7, tensions high. And finally, we see a flash. Shedeur escapes pressure, makes a slick move in the pocket, rolls left, and nearly threads a needle into the corner of the end zone. Great instincts, good velocity. But then, fourth down. Biggest play of the game. Fans on their feet. Shedeur lines up the Ravens' clearly jump off sides multiple players. Everyone sees it. Wyatt Teller points. The entire line freaks out, expecting a flag that doesn't come. Snap goes off. Sanders throws it up under pressure. Incomplete. Turnover on downs. No penalty. No redo. Just silence. And you could feel it, this wasn't just incompetence anymore. It felt like sabotage. Let's just be clear. A rookie quarterback who'd never practiced with this unit, never gotten a cadence rep with these linemen, never thrown in rhythm with the starting receivers, just got sent into battle against the Baltimore Ravens defense. No prep. No support. No shot. Of course it went bad. How could it not? But here's the kicker. Everyone, and I mean everyone, expected Rex Ryan to show up the next day gleefully ripping Sanders apart. And instead, he flipped the script because Rex saw what we all saw, that this wasn't a quarterback problem. It was a coaching failure from the top down. How does the offensive line not know this kid's cadence? Why would you trade up to get a quarterback and not give him any reps? This is organizational malpractice. And he wasn't wrong. This wasn't a rookie flopping under pressure. This was a setup. And what Rex said next changed everything, not just for fans, but for the entire football world. Rex Ryan is not the kind of guy who sugarcoats things. If you've ever watched him on ESPN, you know he's brutal. If you mess up, if you come up short, if you look unprepared, Rex is going to torch you. Especially if you're a young quarterback with hype, but no results. And for months, nobody bashed Shadur Sanders harder than Rex. He said he wasn't ready. He said the NFL spotlight would be too bright. He said Shedeur talked too much and delivered too little. So when Shedeur went 4 for 16 and threw a pick against Baltimore, everyone locked in for the show. This was supposed to be Rex's moment, his told you so. But instead, he defended him, and not a little either. Rex didn't just cut Shadur some slack, he aimed his full rage at the Cleveland Browns. How does the offensive line not know this kid's cadence? Why didn't he take 1 rep in a walkthrough? In 7-on-7? In anything? Why the hell did you trade up for a guy just to throw him into a Ravens game with 0 prep? Oh, he wasn't ranting to be dramatic. You could hear it in his voice. Frustration, disbelief, something close to actual concern. He called it organizational failure. And that got people's attention. Because when someone like Rex Ryan, who has made a career out of smoking overhyped players, suddenly flips and defends one, that's not a storyline. That's a red flag. Think about it. This isn't some fan on Twitter. This is a former head coach who's seen how NFL teams prepare behind the scenes. If Rex says something is off inside the Browns building, people listen. And Rex wasn't alone. Dan Orlovsky, another former NFL QB, backed it up. He went on air to confirm that Shedeur had not taken a single live rep with the first team since training camp. None. Not one. Nothing to build chemistry, familiarity, or even confidence. All the snaps with WR1S, Flacco, Pickett, Gabriel. Shedeur was left with scout team reps when he got those. Dan even admitted, "Look, I could go weeks as a backup and not take reps. But I was a veteran. I knew the system. I was in places like that for that reason." Shedeur is a rookie. First NFL snaps ever. You can't treat him like a 10-year journeyman. And that's the point that actually matters. It's not that Shedeur wasn't perfect out there. It's not that he struggled. It's how the Browns set him up to fail. Because there's a difference between a player not being ready and a team refusing to prepare him. And that difference is everything. Behind the scenes, people started whispering, why draft him at all? If you had no plans to develop him, why trade up? Was this a PR move gone wrong? A power play from upstairs? Did the coaching staff never want the pick in the first place? Rex didn't say it directly, but he implied the worst. Is it something about the kid they can't stand? Not his playstyle, not his skills. The kid, his attitude, his name, his last name. Because let's be honest, Shadur Sanders didn't come into the league like a typical day 2 rookie. He came with headlines, with hype, with a father who happens to be one of the most polarizing figures in football. And that might have rubbed the wrong people the wrong way. That maybe, just maybe, this team never wanted him to succeed. And when you line up those facts, the draft, the silence, the lack of reps, the sudden pressure, it doesn't look like a coincidence anymore. It looks like a message. You're not our guy. And to be fair, something is clearly broken in Cleveland. Because when Rex Ryan is torching your organization to defend a quarterback he publicly criticized, then it's no longer about football. It's about how you treat your players. And from what we've seen, the Browns failed Shadur Sanders before he ever stepped on that field. There's something that happened during that game, something subtle, but honestly, it might be the most revealing part of this entire story. And once you notice it, you can't unsee it. When Shadur Sanders walked onto that field, the Cleveland crowd erupted. Phones went up, people were standing. There was actual electricity in the building. Say what you want about Shedeur. Fans wanted to see what the kid could do. But on the sidelines, on the field, where it actually mattered, crickets. No huddle slap on the helmet, no fired-up lineman patting his back. No one rallying the team like, let's go win this for the rookie. It was radio silence. Like they'd just watched a stranger walk onto the field. And you know who noticed? Rex Ryan. He said it clearly, and it hit like a punch to the gut. The only energy I saw in the entire stadium was when that kid walked onto the field. You know who wanted to see him play? The dang fans. You know who didn't care? His teammates. Pause on that. For a moment, as big as this your rookie quarterback, the guy your team traded up to get, finally stepping into an actual NFL game and the locker room gives him nothing? That's not just odd. That's disturbing. And look, team chemistry matters. Relationships matter. Quarterbacks don't operate in a vacuum. They need an O-line that protects with urgency, receivers that want to fight for every catch, a sideline that believes in the guy under center. But Shedeur didn't get any of that. He didn't inherit a huddle, he inherited a ghost town. And here's where things get even darker. That kind of disconnect, it doesn't come out of nowhere. It gets created, shaped, nurtured, or neglected over months. What kind of message was the coaching staff sending to the team leading up to this moment? If you're not giving Shedeur practice reps, if you're not designing him into the game plan, if you're not even talking about him publicly, then what are you actually telling the rest of the locker room? Simple. This guy doesn't matter. And when a team gets that message, when they see a player being sidelined, dismissed, quietly boxed out of the future, they respond accordingly. The O-line doesn't learn his cadence. The receivers don't work on timing routes with him. The team doesn't develop chemistry. Because they're taking their cue from above, he's not the priority. And then you toss that same guy onto the field in the biggest moment of the season? That's not just unfair, it's unforgivable. And again, this isn't just speculation. The visual told the story. You could see the distance, the doubt. Even as Shedeur tried to take control of the huddle, even as he stood tall on the sideline post-pick, you could feel it. He was alone. Now imagine being that rookie. You go from playing under full spotlight pressure at Colorado, where teammates had your back, coaches were in your corner, and the city rallied behind you, to walking into a stadium where even your own sideline doesn't feel like home. That changes a quarterback, because this isn't just about talent anymore. It's about culture. And right now, Cleveland's culture is screaming one thing. This isn't our guy. Maybe it's about ego. Maybe it's politics. Maybe it's because of his last name you'd be naive to ignore the Deion Sanders connection and the media attention it brings. But whatever the reason, this wasn't a team supporting their rookie. This was a team silently watching him drown. And when former NFL coaches, guys like Rex Ryan and Dan Orlovsky, are the only people speaking out while the locker room stays quiet, yeah, something's seriously wrong in Cleveland. All right, let's talk about the numbers. On paper, Shadur Sanders' NFL debut was a disaster. 4 completions, 16 attempts, 1 interception, 47 yards, no touchdowns. If all you saw was the box score, you'd probably think the critics were right. Shedeur wasn't ready. He couldn't handle pressure. He froze. And sure, on the surface, the stats look ugly. But here's the truth. The stats don't even come close to telling the full story. Because when you actually roll the film, and I mean really break it down, play by play, angle by angle, there's only one word for what happened out there. Chows. And none of it was Shedeur's fault. Let's start with the very first drive. Moments after entering the game, Shedeur lines up under center, except the offensive line doesn't respond to his cadence. Why? Simple. They've never heard him before. Not in a practice. Not in a walkthrough. Not even in scout team reps, according to reports. So instead of identifying the snap rhythm, they're guessing, which in the NFL is a death sentence. From the jump, Ravens defenders were timing the snap better than Shedeur's own linemen. First play, pressure off the edge unblocked. Second play, they bring an exotic blitz package. Shedeur, no chemistry with his line, scrambles, hesitates, releases late ball sails high. Interception. Just like that. But it wasn't a bad read. It wasn't a boneheaded decision. It was survival. The kid was reading the field while getting hunted by one of the smartest defensive units in football. This wasn't some mid-tier D-line he was facing. This was the Baltimore Ravens' top 3 in pressures, sacks, and disguise packages. They knew he was cold, and they pounced. Throughout the next 2 drives, it only got worse. 1 snap, the line misses an inside stunt. Shedeur gets crushed after 1 hitch step. Next play, successful rollout, cleaner pocket, and guess what? He almost drops a dime in the back corner of the end zone. That one throw? It showed us everything. The footwork, the vision, the timing, the arm talent. It was nearly a perfect NFL throw, but the DB closed fast and broke it up. Still, it was a flicker. Proof that under better conditions, this kid has something. And then came maybe the most frustrating moment of the game, 4th and goal. Game on the line, Shedeur lines up. The Ravens clearly jump off sides. Like, it's not even subtle. 2 defenders are halfway across the line before the snap. Wyatt Teller points. Players yell. The cameras clearly catch it. No flag. Shedeur's forced to lob a pressure throw. Incomplete. Turnover on downs. Drive ends. Game all but over. Now, go back and ask yourself, was this a fair evaluation? Was this the kind of scenario you use to judge whether a young player is NFL material? A kid who's never had a first-team rep being thrown in cold against one of the fiercest defenses in the league, with 0 protection and teammates who didn't even know what snap count he'd be using? This wasn't exposure. It was execution by scheme. Every single failure on the field traced back to preparation, coaching, and support, not ability. And you know what? That's what real analysts saw. Football minds, guys who live in film rooms, noticed the details. They didn't see a quarterback flop. They saw a quarterback abandoned. Because the film doesn't lie. Yes, Sanders made mistakes. He hesitated. He got flustered. That's what happens when you're dropped into sinking sand and told to run a marathon. But at no point did he look like a guy who couldn't play at this level. His pocket awareness? Flashed. His improvisation? Flashed. His arm? Undeniable? What didn't flash? A coaching staff putting him in a position to succeed. And when you isolate the plays, slow down the footage, and understand what he was reacting to, it becomes clear. This wasn't a quarterback melting under pressure. This was a kid getting lit up because his own team didn't do their damn job. After a game like that, most rookie quarterbacks would have been shell-shocked. Deer in the headlights, avoiding reporters, hiding behind excuses, throwing coaches or teammates under the bus. Let's call it what it was. Shadur Sanders got hung out to dry in front of the entire football world. Poor preparation, no protection, confused teammates, harsh critics, ugly box score. The easiest route would have been to chalk it up to bad timing or blame the game plan. Lord knows he had every reason to do it. But what did Shedeur do instead? He owned it. Straight up. I gotta take this one, he said to reporters quietly. I gotta decompress and understand, like, this really happened on my watch. I don't like the feeling. And I know offensively, if I'm able to get out there and have an opportunity, I know I'll be able to take things to a different level. Read that again. Not a single word about the line missing blocks. Not one excuse about the lack of reps. No shots fired at the coaching staff. Zero excuses. Instead, he took accountability for a situation that wasn't even in his control. And that right there, that moment, that's the one thing people weren't expecting. Because we've heard all the criticism. He's too flashy. He talks too much. Only got drafted because of his dad. Not humble enough. But when the pressure was on, when the narrative was turning ugly, Shedeur didn't fold, and he didn't deflect. He stood up, looked everyone in the eye, and took it on the chin. That's not ego, that's leadership. And for some people, especially Rex Ryan, that was the turning point. That post-game press conference revealed something stats never could. This kid's willing to carry the weight, even when it's not his to carry. A lot of rookies have talent. A lot of guys can sling the ball and post highlight throws. But mental toughness? True accountability? That's rare. And let's be honest, this could have been the moment Shadur lost the respect of the football world. A bad debut, confused teammates, conflicting reports about effort and attitude. It had all the makings of an unraveling rookie narrative. But he changed the tone. He flipped the storyline not with a game-winning drive or viral highlight, but with composure, self-awareness, and belief. Go back to what he said. If I'm able to get out there, I know I'll be able to take things to a different level. He didn't beg for sympathy. He didn't promise miracles. He simply said, give me a real shot, and I'll show you. And that's the key. He's not asking for celebrity treatment. He's asking for something far simpler, the opportunity to compete. The same opportunity every rookie deserves. The same basic structure nearly every NFL backup gets: reps, rhythm, walkthroughs, chemistry with the line. He's not demanding to start. He's not demanding to be treated like a star. He's just asking to be treated like a quarterback. A young QB who wants to learn, who wants to improve, who knows he's got a long way to go, but knows where he's headed. And for all the people still on the fence about Shadur Sanders, still unsure if he's the real deal or a media-made mirage, let's make one thing clear. That kind of mindset, you can't coach that. All the film sessions, QB drills, and 7-on-7 seconds in the world can't teach maturity. So while critics were roasting his mechanics, and analysts were tearing apart every incompletion, the most important part of his game showed up at a press conference. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly why Rex Ryan snapped. Because love him or hate him, Shadur Sanders handled the worst moment of his young career with more class than most veterans do in a loss. And now, the pressure's not just on Shadur anymore. It's on everyone around him to decide whether they're going to keep putting roadblocks in front of a quarterback who's clearly ready to put in the work, or finally give him the shot they promised from the start. At this point, it's clear. This isn't just about Shadur Sanders. This is about something way bigger and way uglier than one rookie struggling in his first NFL game. This is about a broken process, an organization that claimed to be building for the future, but is still operating like it's stuck in the past. Because what happened to Shedeur doesn't happen in a healthy franchise. Let's look at the facts. The Browns traded up to draft a quarterback. They spent assets, time, and headlines on that decision. Then they gave him 0 first-team reps. Then they sent him into a tie game against a top 3 defense. Then the locker room didn't back him. And now, the coaches are radio silent about why it all went off the rails. If that's not dysfunction, I don't know what is. And here's where it gets even more chilling, because we've seen this before, over and over again. Talented young players get caught in the political crossfire of bad organizations. Rookies don't just bust because they never had the tools. They bust because their team never gave them the chance to build anything. They bust because the communication breakdown starts week 1. Because the front office wants one direction and the coaching staff wants another. Because egos get bigger than blueprints. And what happens next? The same script every time. The player takes the heat. The media rips him nightly. The fans turn skeptical. Then suddenly, the coaches are pretending like they never had a say in the pick. But here's the twist. In Shadur's case, we're not watching that storyline 3 years later. We're watching it in real time, and it's painful. Because there is no NFL position more fragile than quarterback. You only get so many chances, only so much patience, and once the label sticks that you're a bust, a diva, a coach's mistake it's nearly impossible to shake. So if Cleveland keeps mishandling this, if they keep benching Shadur without giving him the tools to grow, if they treat his presence like a burden instead of an asset, then this won't just become a missed opportunity. This will become a cautionary tale. A reminder of how quickly a young talent can be wasted by the same people who were supposed to build him up. Not because of skill, but because of silence. Because of politics. Because of pride. And again, Rex Ryan touched on this exact thing. He didn't just go after Cleveland's play calling or depth chart. He went after building culture. He asked what everyone else was afraid to say out loud. Why would you trade up for a guy you clearly don't want to empower? Is it something about the kid that you just can't stand? That line shook people. And not because of the words, but because of the implication. Is this personal? Does someone in that building resent the spotlight Shedeur brings? Are coaches resisting ownership's pick to prove a point? Is he facing consequences not for his play, but for who he is? Because let's face it, Shadur Sanders didn't enter the league quietly. He brought cameras, interviews, expectations, legacy. All of it. And in the wrong environment, that makes you a threat. Not to fans, not to teammates, but to egos. So maybe that's the real issue in Cleveland. Not that Shedeur is unprepared. Not that he can't compete. But that someone in that building never wanted him to have the chance to begin with. And now they're making sure he won't. And if that's true even a little, then this is no longer just another disappointing draft pick. It's a story about wasted potential, organizational dysfunction, and possibly the intentional sabotage of a young man's career. Because if the Browns can't get out of their own way, then Shadur Sanders may not be their future. But this mistake? This will be a part of the Browns' legacy for a long, long time. So now, here we are. Shedeur's first NFL appearance is in the rearview mirror. The critics have had their say. The tape has been broken down. The excuses? They've all been labeled, filed, and replayed 100 times over. But there's one question nobody can duck anymore. Now what? Because this next decision, the one Cleveland is facing right now, could literally determine not just the Browns season, but Shadur Sanders' entire NFL career. Let's break it down. Dillon Gabriel is still in concussion protocol. No word yet on if or when he'll be cleared. If he's out this Sunday, guess who's next in line again? Exactly. Shedeur could be starting. And here's the thing. It won't matter what happened last week. What matters now is how the Browns react to it. Because they've got two options. And they couldn't be more different. Option 1. They do what they've always done. Shedeur gets limited practice reps, no first-team walkthroughs, no chemistry with the line, no game plan tailored to his strengths. They treat Sunday's game like another emergency fire drill. Toss him into the storm, hope for a miracle, and act surprised when it doesn't work out. That option? That's a trap. That's how you ruin a quarterback. That's how you destroy confidence, torch development, and waste raw talent with real potential. And most importantly, that's how you cover your own tracks. Because if Shedeur fails again under the same exact conditions, the coaches will say what they've said all along. See? Not ready yet. Still learning the system. We gave him a shot. But in reality, that wouldn't be a shot, it would be a setup. Again. Option 2, they smarten up. They stop playing politics. They start preparing this kid like they actually believe he can succeed. That means putting Shadur in with the first-team offense all week, letting him take command of the cadence. Developing timing with WR1S, creating a game plan built around the tools he already has: movement, timing, RPO, looks, short game efficiency. Let him use his legs. Get him outside the pocket. Give him rollouts, bootlegs, slants, screens, get the ball out fast and build some momentum. Make him feel like he belongs on the field. Not like he stumbled into the huddle on accident. That's coaching. That's development. That's how you give a young quarterback a fighting chance. But here's the part people don't always say out loud. The Browns don't just owe that to Shedeur. They owe it to themselves. Remember, they didn't find him laying around in the later rounds. They traded up to get him. That means they sacrificed something. They chose him over dozens of other prospects. They saw something and they sold it to the fans. So what's it going to be? Was that pick genuine belief or just a flash move for headlines? Because if they leave Shedeur on the sideline again, or worse, throw him in the fire without preparation, they're not just sabotaging a rookie. They're torching their own credibility. Bottom line, it's decision time in Cleveland. If they invest in Shedeur the way they were supposed to, if they give him the structure, the support, and the game script that every rookie quarterback needs, then yes, he might still struggle. But he'll learn. He'll grow. He'll show flashes, and more than anything, he'll earn the respect of the locker room and the league. But if they keep doing what they're doing now, they're going to lose more than games. They'll lose a quarterback. And maybe, one day soon, they'll watch him become a star somewhere else. And when that happens, they'll only have themselves to blame. So now you've seen it. All of it. Not just the headlines, not just the stat line, not just the hot takes. This is the story of a young quarterback who got drafted into chaos. A player with NFL tools stuck in an NFL system that never planned to use them. A rookie who walked into one of the biggest moments of his life and was met with silence, not from the fans, not from the media, but from the very team that chose him. And somehow, after all that, Shadur Sanders still wants the ball. He still believes he can make something happen, still believes there's another level, still believes that if he's just given the chance a real one, with real preparation and real support, he can deliver. And you know what? He might be right, because everything we've seen points to this. Shedeur didn't fail because he lacked talent. He struggled because Cleveland never gave him the foundation to succeed. And when Rex Ryan, a guy who made his living calling out overhyped quarterbacks, flips his entire stance after one game, you have to ask yourself, what did he see? He saw the same thing we all did if we were actually watching. He saw a kid thrown into one of the worst situations imaginable and still take accountability. No excuses, no finger pointing, just ownership and belief. That kind of mindset? That's rare. It's raw, it's real, and in the NFL, it matters more than most people realize. But here's the hard truth. Even that might not be enough, because some teams, especially ones like Cleveland, have a habit of letting politics, pride, and dysfunction get in the way of progress. They pick the right players, but surround them with all the wrong pieces. They draft for the future, then panic the moment things don't go perfectly. And worst of all, they're slow to admit when they've made mistakes, especially when those mistakes come from within. Right now, the Browns have a choice to make. They can continue to sideline Shedeur, ignore his potential, and watch the media slowly drag his name through the mud. Or they can take this moment, this very real crisis point, and flip the narrative. Not for PR, not to silence critics, but because it's the right thing to do. Give the kid reps, give him a game plan, give him a chance to compete. Because talent like this doesn't show up every year, and mental toughness like this, rarer than anyone wants to admit. And if they don't, it won't just hurt Shedeur's career, it'll haunt Cleveland. Because the worst kind of regret isn't missing out on someone you didn't believe in, it's wasting someone you did. So now it's your turn. Do you think Shadur Sanders was set up to fail, or was this just part of a rough learning curve for a rookie quarterback? Do you believe Rex Ryan's right to call out the Browns, or is this all being blown out of proportion? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear from both sides on this. And if you're Team Shadur and you believe he deserves a real shot with real support, go ahead and click that like button right now. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because this saga in Cleveland, something tells me it's only just getting started.